පිට පිට ආපු කොවිඩ් රැලිත් එක්ක මුඛාවරණ එහෙම නැත්නම් මාස්ක් දාන එක අපිට නම් දැන් පුරුද්දට ගිහින්. ඒ වුණාට පොඩ්ඩොන්ට හරියට මාස්ක් එකක් දාන්නේ කොහොමද කියලායි ඒක තියාගන්නේ කොහොමද කියලායි පුරුදු කරන එක කොච්චර අමාරුද කියලා දන්නේ අම්මලා තාත්තලාම තමයි. ඒ හින්දා පොඩි ළමයිනුයි මේ මාස්ක් පාවිච්චිය ගැන අපි හොයලා බැලුවා. පොඩ්ඩු මාස්ක් දාන්න ඕනිවද? මේ ප්‍රශ්න ගැන හොඳට හොයලා බලපු ලෝක සෞඛ්‍ය සංවිධානයේ විද්වත් කමිටුවක් කියන විදිහට අවුරුදු 5ට පොඩ්ඩන්ට නම් මාස්ක් දාන්න ඕනි නෑ. ඔය වයස්වල පොඩ්ඩෝ විනාඩි කීයක් එක විදිහට ඉන්නවද කියලා අපි හොඳට දන්නවනේ. හැබැයි සමහර අවස්ථා තියෙනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ සෙනඟ වැඩි තැන් වලට වගේ අරගෙන යන්න වෙන. එහෙම අවස්ථාවලදී පොඩ්ඩෝ අවුරුදු 2කට වැඩි නම් මාස්ක් එකක් දාන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒ දාපු මාස්ක් එක හරියට තියාගන්නවද කියලා බලන්න අම්මා තාත්තා හරි වැඩිහිටි කෙනෙක් හරි මේගොල්ලෝ ළඟටම වෙලා ඉන්න වෙනවා. අවුරුදු 6 ඉඳලා 11 වෙන ළමයින්ට නම් කොවිඩ් ආසාදනය වෙන වැඩි හැකියාවක් තියෙන තැන්වලට යනකොට මාස්ක් එකක් පළඳින්න නිර්දේශ කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ළමයින්ගේ වයස අවුරුදු 12ට වැඩි නම් ඒගොල්ලොත් වැඩිහිටියෝ වගේම හරියට මේ මාස්ක් පළඳින්න ඕනි. හොඳට දුවල පැල්ල ඉන්න ළමයින්ට නම් රෙදි මාස්ක් එකක් දැම්මම ඇති. හැබැයි ඒ දාන මාස්ක් එකේ ප්‍රමාණය ගැන ඒ මාස්ක් එක ළමයින්ට අරන් දෙන වැඩිහිටියෝ සැලකිලිමත් වෙන්න ඕනි. ඒ කියන්නේ නහය, කට, හා නිකට කියන තුනම හරියට ආවරණය වෙන්න ඕනි. සර්ජිකල් මාස්ක් කියන වර්ගයේ පළඳින්න ඕනි වෙන්නේ නිදන්ගතවම ප්‍රතිශක්තිකරණය දුරවල ළමයින්ට හා COVID-19 රෝග ලක්ෂණ තියෙනවා කියලා සැක කරන ළමයින්ටයි තමයි. හැබැයි ඒ වෙලාවට නිවස ඇතුළේදී පවා මේ මාස්ක් එක දාගෙන ඉන්න වෙනවා. හරියට මාස්ක් එකක් පළඳින්නේ කොහොමද? මාස්ක් එකක් දාන්න කලින් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඇල්කොහොල් හරි සබන් හෝ වතුර යොදලා හරි හොඳට අත්සෝද ගන්න ඕනි. ඒ වගේම මේගොල්ලන්ට කියලා දෙන්න ඕනි මාස්ක් එකක් දැම්මට පස්සේ මූණ අල්ලන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්න, ඒ වගේම නිකටට දාගන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්න, කටින් හපන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්න. අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අනිත් පොඩ්ඩොන්ගේ එක මාස්ක් හොමාරු කරගන්න නැතුව ඉන්න. පොඩ්ඩෝ එළිය සෙල්ලම් කරන වෙලාවට නම් මාස්ක් දාන්න ඕනේ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ වෙලාවෙදි ළමයින්ගේ හුස්ම ගන්න එකට මේ මාස්ක් පාවිච්චි නිසා බාධා වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ හින්දා එක වෙලාවකදී එකට සෙල්ලම් කරන ළමයි ගාන අඩු කරලා හරියට ළමයින්ව ඈත් කරලා ඊට හරියන විදිහේ සෙල්ලම් කියලා දෙන්න ළමයි එක්ක වැඩ කරන අයට පුරුදු වෙන්න වෙනවා. තව මතක් කරන්න ඕන දෙයක් තමයි මුකුණු ආවරණ. ඒ කියන්නේ ෆේස් ෂීල්ඩ් එකකින් විතරක් මාස්ක් එකකින් ලැබෙන ආරක්ෂාව ලැබෙන්නේ නැති බව. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ ෆේස් ෂීල්ඩ් එකක් විතරක් දාලා පොඩ්ඩන්ව එළියට දාන්න එපා හොඳේ. මේ පොඩි දේවල් වලින් ඔයගලන්ගේ පොඩ්ඩන්ව කොවිඩ් වලින් ආරක්ෂා කරගෙන ඒගලන්ට ලස්සන ළමා කාලයක් ලැබලා දෙන්නත් පුළුවන්.
මේක අපේ ගමේ සිද්ධ වුණ ඇත්ත කතාවක්. ඇල්බර්ට් සීයයි මේරි ආච්චි ජීවත් වුණේ එයාලගේ දුව එක්ක. ඔවුන් බොහොම සමගියෙන් සතුටින් ජීවත් වුණ පවුලක්. පහුගිය දවස්වල සංචරණ සීමා දාලා හින්දා කවුරුත් ගෙදරින් එළියට ගියේ නැහැ. නිමාටයි ගීතාන්ටයි නිවසේ සිට රැකියාව කරන්න පුළුවන් වුණ නිසා දරුවන්ට පාසල් නොපවත්වන නිසා එයාලට ගැටලුවක් වුණේ නැහැ. මේ ඉන්න කමලයි උපාලි ඇල්බර්ට් සීයාගේ අසල්වාසී. හදිසියේ අසනීප වුණ කමලව ගෙනියන්න ඇම්බියුලන්ස් එකක් ආවා. උපාලි අර ඇල්බර්ට් මාමලාගේ ගෙදරින් ඉල්ලගෙන ආව පිල්බරෝම අදම ගිහින් දෙන්න. මට තව කී දවසකින් එන්න වෙයිද දන්නේ නෑනේ. කමලා උපාලිට එහෙම කියලා පිටත් වුණා. උපාලි ඉක්මනින්ම විල්බරෝව ඇල්බර්ට් සීයාගේ ගෙදරට අරන් ගියා. උපාලි දැක්ක මේරි ආච්චි ඉක්මනින් ළඟට ආවා. පහළ උදවියනේ.
මේක අරන් ගිහින් උග දවසක් නැද්දේ?
අනේ මොනවා කියනවද පුතේ? කමක් නැහැ. හදිසියක් නෙවෙයි. විනාඩි 20ක් විතර කතා කර කර හිටපු උපාලි ගෙදර ගියා. තවත් 5කට විතර පස්සේ මේරි ආච්චිගේ ඇඟපත රිදෙන්න ගත්තා. පහුගිය දොහේ වත්තේ වැඩ කළානේ. නාගත්තම හැරිලා යයි. මේරි ආච්චි හිතුවා. පහුවදා උදේ වෙනකොට මේරි ආච්චිට පොඩි කැස්සක් හැදුණා. ඊළඟ දවසේ කැස්ස ටික ටික වැඩි වුණා. හවස් වෙද්දී හුස්ම ගන්නත් අමාරු වුණා. ඉතින් ගෙදර අය මේරි ආච්චිව ඉක්මනින් රෝහලට අරන් ගියා. මේරි ආච්චිට හදිසි ප්‍රතිකාර ලබා දුන්නා. දින 3කින් දැනගන්න ලැබුණා මේරි ආච්චි කොවිඩ් ආසාදිත බව. වරින් වර ගෙදර හැමෝම ආසාදිත වෙමින් රෝහල්ගත කළා. අවුරුදු 80ක් වන මේරි ආච්චි අවුරුදු 84ක් වන ඇල්බර්ට් සීයා කොවිඩ් නියුමෝනියාව උග්‍ර වෙලා දැඩි සත්කාර ඒකකයේ ප්‍රතිකාර ලැබුණා. අපොයි වෙච්ච දෙයක්. මොකක්ද හිතන්නේ? වැරදුනේ කොතනද? නිවසේ නිරෝධායනයට යොමු විය යුතුව තිබූ උපාලි ඇල්බර්ට් සීයාගේ ගෙදර නොආවන දුරස්ථභාවය තියාගත්තද? දුරකථනයෙන් ගැටලුව සාකච්ඡා කළා නම්? ඇල්බර්ට් සීයාගේ පවුල අදත් සතුටින් ඉන්නවා. කොවිඩ් ආසාදිත හෝ ආසාදිත බවට සැක කෙරෙන කිසිවකුට ඔබ නිවසේ ඇත්නම් කරුණාකර රෝගියා නිසි ප්‍රතිකාරවලට යොමු කර ඔබ නිවසේම රැඳී සිටින්න. ප්‍රදේශීය මහජන සෞඛ්‍ය පරීක්ෂකවරයා දැනුවත් කර නියමිත දිනට PCR රැපිඩ් ඇන්ටිජන් පරීක්ෂණය සිදු කරගන්න. ප්‍රතිඵල ලැබෙන තුරු නිවසේම රැඳී සිටින්න. ඔබ ආශ්‍රිතයෙකුට නිරෝධායන කාල සීමාව අවසන් වෙනතුරු නිවසේම රැඳී සිටින්න. සෞඛ්‍ය ආරක්ෂක ක්‍රමවේද පිළිපදින්න. තරුණ ඔබට වඩා වයස්ගත පුද්ගලයින්ට මෙම රෝගයේ සංකූලතා බහුල බැවින් අපගේ වැඩිහිටියන් රැක ගැනීමට උපකාර වන්න.
Sri Lanka Mata, apa Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata, Sundara Sidarini, Surani Ati Sobamana Lanka, Ranya Ganaya Mekamal Balaturu Piri Jaya Bhumi Ranya, Apa Hata Sapa Siri Seta Sadhana, Jivana Emada, Pilih Kandu Mena Apa Bhakti Puja, Namo Namo Mata, Apa Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata, Obame Apa Vidya, Obamaya Apa Satya, Obare Apa Shanti, Apa Hada Tula Bhakti, Oba Apa Aloke, Apa Ge Anuprane, Oba Apa Jivanane, Apa Muktiya Obare, Nava Jivana Devini, Nitina Apa Kubudukaran Mata, Jnana Vida Vadavamina Ragena Yanu Mena Jaya Bhumi Kara, Ekamavaka Kedaru Kala Bevina,
did his service as a WHO representative in Bangladesh. After his retirement, he served as a consultant for the USAID, World Bank, the UN, and the WHO. He played a major role in the public health service in Sri Lanka in achieving the goal Health for All by the year 2000. Dear Sir, you will be remembered with utmost love and respect forever. May you attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Let us now observe 1 minute of silence as we respect our patrons, all the past presidents, and the members of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, who are not with us but never forgotten. Thank you. I would now like to invite Dr. Nihal Abesinghe, the President of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, to welcome the gathering.
Ayubowan. Good evening. The chief guest tonight, Dr. Palitha Bekon, the college orator, Professor Gagandeep Khan, the council members of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, past presidents and fellows of the college, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a true pleasure for me to welcome you to the inauguration of the 26th annual academic sessions of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. From Colombo, Sri Lanka, conducted through the digital platform due to movement restrictions imposed as a prevention and control measure of COVID-19 pandemic. I am very grateful to you, Dr. Palitha Bekon, WHO Director General Special Envoy for COVID-19 for Southeast Asia, and the advisor to the WHO Country Office, and to the Regional Director of the WHO Southeast Asia region for accepting our invitation to be the chief guest tonight. As one of the most respected Sri Lankan senior public health champion, actively engaged in uplifting the public health services in the country, in the Southeast Asia region, and at the global level, your presence tonight is very much appreciated. We are grateful to you taking time off from your busy schedule to attend the inauguration of College Annual Academic Session as our chief guest. You guided me to join the WHO as far back in 2008, and through that you encouraged me to join the International Public Health Services following your path. You are my mentor since then. I also wish to thank Professor Gagandeep Khan, Professor of Microbiology, Christian Medical College, Vellore, India, the chairperson of the Immunization Technical Advisory Group, WHO Southeast Asia region, for agreeing to deliver the college oration. I met Professor Khan when I was working at the WHO CRO, New Delhi, India, around 2012, following her appointment as the chairperson of Southeast Asia Regional Immunization Technical Advisory Group. Subsequently, in addition to the WHO CRO level, we work together at the global level, representing the Southeast Asia region at the WHO SAGE, she as the ITAC chair, and me as the regional advisor, Vaccine Preventable Diseases, WHO Southeast Asia Regional Office. I am honored to welcome the past presidents, fellows, the council members, and the members of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. I also would like to greet the representatives from the professional college, Ministry of Health, and government officials, and the colleagues from non-governmental agencies. It is also an honor for me to welcome the representatives from our partner organization, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, UNDP, World Bank, HNB Assurance PLC, as well as other experts of different disciplines to the inauguration of annual academic sessions today. In my opinion, the time is now right to reflect on a number of issues. Today, Sri Lanka is at the crossroads of its future. We need to balance between lives and livelihood. Have we acted wisely during this COVID-19 crisis? Have our strategies yielded the intended effects? How can we secure lasting and sustainable control of COVID-19 epidemic and recover from the current status of economic instability? How do we produce long-term sustained growth rate for our economy? The College of Community Physicians Sri Lanka's stand has been and will be through solidarity, though through whole of government and whole of society approach. Are we in the correct path? We all have seen that the issues of human capital has grown in importance. COVID-19 pandemic has threatened to reverse the gains in human capital outcomes by exposing weaknesses in health, education, and social protection systems. We have witnessed this and observed this. This has led everyone to reflect upon immediate, longer-term, and forward-looking responses concerning human capital. Sri Lanka needs more science, research, and development. We urgently need to attend to the system issues that have led to many unwanted outcomes pertaining to human capital. In the past, critical historical movements have allowed Sri Lanka to undergo new developments and changes. Today's financial and economic crisis might allow for a new and fresh perspective. It's our approach to the crisis that defines the future. Deep analysis into reasons for the present crisis is the first step towards putting forward a vision for an innovative public health service in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to ponder on the last point. The global challenges require a transitional and trans-institutional effort. And in this context, the community physicians play a special role in rebuilding our public health infrastructure, human capital, and the services we render. If all of us act collectively, strategically, vehemently, this will pave way to success and a better future. In my opinion, professionals in any field can play an important role as independent advisors to policymakers through evidence generation. The key objective would be to bring Sri Lanka back on track by setting an agenda which is based on scientific evidence aiming at sustainable growth through innovation. It's the academics who play a main role in training the younger generation. In this context, College of Community Physicians plays a major role in public health and related fields with other stakeholders. This year was a challenging year, and due to the current situation, we concentrated more on research and guiding policy decisions. Therefore, the 26th annual academic sessions of this College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka has selected number of public health issues to be discussed during the 4 days. We will discuss practical examples, various approaches and potential actions, as well as recommendations. We already had 2 symposia, one on COVID-19 and the other on incorporating anthropology and ethnography in public health research. I wish you most fruitful 2 days ahead with interesting and stimulating discussions and exchange of knowledge so that we can together envisage the future of an innovative public health service for Sri Lanka. Let me again welcome all of you who have joined the inauguration of College of Community Physicians Sri Lanka annual academic sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Nihal Abesinghe, our president, to introduce our chief guest tonight, Dr. Palitha Abekon.
Dr. Palita Bekon is currently the World Health Organization Director General Special Envoy for COVID-19 for Southeast Asia and an advisor to the WHO Country Office and to the Regional Director of the WHO Southeast Asia region. He is also a board member of the WHO Global Learning Academy. He is a graduate of the Faculty of Medicine, Peradeniya, and had his postgraduate education in the University of Southern California in Los Angeles and Harvard University in Boston. Started life as an academic in the Faculty of Medicine in the University of Peradeniya, teaching public health and pediatrics, and as the director of Department of Medical Education. He was invited by the World Health Organization as the Human Resource for Health Advisor to Nepal and later to Indonesia, where he developed the first ever School of Medicine, IOM, in Nepal and helped to set up 5 new schools of public health in Indonesia. As the WHO Regional Advisor in Human Resources for Health in the WHO Regional Office in New Delhi, he set up the reorientation of medical education program in the region. And later he was the Director of Health Systems, organized the landmark Regional Public Health Conference that resulted in the new historic Calcutta Declaration on Public Health for Southeast Asia. Concurrently, he has served as the WHO representative to India for 2 years, and one of his key achievements was in relation to the eradication of polio from the country. He also guided the establishment of the first public health university in Myanmar and the Bhutan Institute of Medicine and the bachelor's degree program in public health. In Sri Lanka, Dr. Bekon chaired the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol. In fact, received the WHO Director General's Tobacco Award this year. Was a member of National Medicines Authority of Sri Lanka and an honorable advisor to the Ministry of Health. He was President Sri Lanka Medical Association and the AIDS Foundation of Sri Lanka. He is Vice Chair, Country Coordinating Mechanisms of the Global Fund. Dr. Bekon has received fellowship from the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, the College of Medical Educationists, the College of General Practitioners, and the College of Medical Administrators of Sri Lanka. He was awarded the Dr. Fred Katz Award of the Australian and New Zealand Association of Medical Education for outstanding services in medical education, the Taro Takemi Award of the Harvard School of Public Health, and recently the Prof. McLean Leadership Award of the Asia Pacific Academic Consortium for Public Health. Dr. Bekon has numerous publications, including journal articles and chapters in books in public health and medical education, and serves on a number of editorial boards. He has delivered numerous prestigious invited orations in Sri Lanka and abroad. I invite the chief guest, Dr. Palita Bekon, to address the gathering. Sir.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Nihala Besinger, for those very flattering words. I did not know that you were going to read a long citation this time. Anyway, I appreciate your kind gesture. I don't deserve it, but I'm happy to hear what you said. President of the College of Community Physicians, council members, past presidents, and members of the college, the invited orator for the evening, Professor Gangadeep Kang, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good evening to all of you. First, let me thank Dr. Nihala Besinger and the council for this very distinct honor and privilege by inviting me as your chief guest for the inauguration. In all humility, I do not claim any special reason to be so privileged, and merely being a septuagenarian like me certainly cannot be the reason why you have invited me. I believe it is possibly that I have been a long-standing professional colleague of Dr. Nihala Besinger and a fellow traveler in the vineyard of public health. More significantly, perhaps, he has also been, as we say, one of my Kalyana Mitras. But whatever the reason may be, it is indeed an honor and privilege for me to be here with friends, colleagues, and therefore I feel quite comfortable here to share some random thoughts with you, nothing very profound, but something I hope will be related to your theme and some of the comments that that you made a while ago during your initial presentation. Before I do that, Mr. President, since I probably will not get another occasion similar to this to be with you, I think I should voice a few words, even if I may embarrass you as a result of that. I have known you for over 3 decades, and in all these years, I have been consistently impressed by your sincerity, your humility, and your concern for social justice and fairness. You walk the path taken by some of your illustrious epidemiologists of this country, starting with the late Dr. A.V.K.V. de Silva, who happened to be a very close friend of mine, and his eminent successors, and you built on their achievements, and the EPID unit has now become one of our most enviable showpieces in the health sector. I also know personally, at first hand, the enormous contribution you made to the WHO program while you were in Delhi, and how impressed everyone was by your contribution. And all this is, to me, what we call moral excellence. As Aristotle said, moral excellence comes about as a result of habit. We become just by doing just acts, we become temperate by doing temperate acts, and we become brave by doing brave acts. This very fittingly applies to you, Mr. President. Last 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, have been 2 of the most difficult years for public health professionals and experts. Professionals like you, who have endangered your health and lives to serve the patients and the community, are the real heroes of this country. The nation is indebted to you. Most of us are living through probably the only major pandemic we will see and experience in our lifetime. At least we hope so, because 2 of such pandemics in one lifetime would be a great misfortune and can only result due to a very bad collective karma. Since still we know that this too cannot be ruled out as an impossibility. As the famous French-American microbiologist and humanist René Dubos said, human destiny is bound to remain a gamble because at some unpredictable time and in some unforeseeable manner, nature will strike back. Although it feels like we have been battling COVID-19 for a very long time, in the broader context of disease and science, it's actually been a relatively short period. Consider that as recently as January last year, just 18 months ago, few people, other than a limited group of infectious disease experts and public health professionals, had even heard of the novel coronavirus. From the very beginning, it has been a puzzling medical enigma, with far more questions than answers. So much was unknown. We didn't know, for instance, basic things such as how aggressive, virulent, or contagious the virus was. What would be its natural history? Not sure what the deadlier variants will emerge. Did not know how best to treat the disease. What drugs were useful. Much more than that. That's not a comfortable position for health professionals to be in, because they like to be well informed and to be on top of the situation. But working and learning together has enabled us to come very far, very fast. As we learn, we discover more answers. Our knowledge today is far, far better than 1 year ago. My point then is that, crucially, the pandemic has highlighted the cardinal importance of good public health. It touched the core of the public health mission, and public health was the most vital intervention in reducing transmission and the cases, and to minimize the burden on the healthcare system. I have a minor regional role in the pandemic, and I can say that relative to many of the countries in our region, and despite the fact that we could identify a few areas we might have handled better, Sri Lanka, by all estimates, has managed the pandemic reasonably well. And this demonstrates, like what you said, Mr. President, we adopted a whole of government, whole of society approach. We constantly gathered new information and evidence about the disease to inform and plan our response. Therefore, if there is one lesson to us from the pandemic, it should be that the central need for further strengthening our public health system, I am echoing your words, Mr. President, built on our PHC's infrastructure. Secondly, the pandemic also brought out some of the best and some of the not so good qualities among us as a global community. One facet is about how we spent our time during the long lockdown days. We are not a country that stops and smells roses and jasmines. Our days tend to be full of feverish activity with varying degrees of productivity. But COVID gave us time and forced us to do little things we never thought existed, and even to like them. We all spend more time with the family. Many have learned to enjoy new innovative crafts and hobbies. Many discovered the value of reading. And I have seen many of my friends sitting in their verandas looking very happy, just observing the trees and the flowers in the garden. These are, of course, the fortunate ones. But a vast number, Mr. President, overwhelmingly have had a very rough COVID. Many have lost their employment, lost their small businesses, taken salary cuts, and most of the daily wage earners have lost their entire livelihoods. For many of them, it has been a tragedy. Children, they lost a part of the world for a long time. They still do. On another dimension, during these lockdown days, we also heard of increased domestic turbulence, increased stress and alcohol problems, and people just trying to beat the lockdown in general. These impacts come with sweeping consequences for physical and mental health and the health of the population in general. One of the heartening things that I've noticed and I observed during the lockdown days and the COVID is that many people, not just wealthy people, have been giving silently, generously, and selflessly to help those in difficult and worse circumstances. Also, contrarily, we observed how globally opportunistic charlatans and conmen enticed the gullible public to buy and use products with false or misleading claims. This has been all too obvious, and unfortunately, even in Sri Lanka, we had our share of consequences. Like all other pandemics, this pandemic also thrived on inequity, causing substantially higher mortality among those living in poverty and in disadvantaged groups, as well as the elderly and those with chronic diseases. We have heard a lot about global solidarity, but unfortunately, words alone will not end the pandemic nor bring about global solidarity. We are seeing this vividly now in the case of the vaccines. We keep saying no one is protected and no country is protected until all are protected. And if we believe in that, what should have happened is that there should have been an equitable sharing of the global vaccine supply, according to an order of priority on strict criteria. But people are not like that. Those countries who have the money and political power grabbed 5 or 10 times more than their total needs, and it is distressing that after 6 months of vaccination, still there are a few countries who have not administered a single dose. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom said in a recent press briefing that there remains a shocking imbalance in the global distribution of vaccines. First, Dr. Tedros appealed for vaccine equity. Then, when things didn't work, he started crying out for vaccine inequity. He started crying that it's vaccine inequity. Now, Dr. Tedros calls it what has sadly proven to be true. It is vaccine injustice. Differences between the haves and the have-nots are seen everywhere. Thirdly, and I'm coming to the last part of my short speech, thirdly and crucially, this pandemic has highlighted the cardinal importance of good public health experts like many of you are today. This is my final submission, and I think it is significant. Take a current example. You face a dilemma every time we speak of restrictions to movement and imposition of public health and social measures, and also keeping the economy going in the country. How do we best balance this lives and livelihoods dilemma? This may not be even a fair formulation of the problem, because both are crucially important, but we do have to make choices. This is what some of you as experts in the Ministry of Health are called upon to do each day. This is what the country expects from public health experts like you in the larger interest. What then are the specific attributes that give public health experts an important position and an epistemic authority in society? Or even ask, when can we trust someone as a public health expert? These questions have been discussed for long, and probably there aren't any clear-cut answers. However, we can say without much fear of contradiction that someone can be considered an expert if he or she has a combination of the following traits: a good knowledge in the subject, solid experience in the field, a set of significant achievements, a motivation and focus to keep up to date, an excellent reputation among peers, and no personal interest in the issues at stake for gaining personal rewards. In general, there are two main reasons why public health experts are trusted by the people, and they are important in our lives. First reason is that resorting to experts actually brings results. See, for example, the average life expectancy got higher and higher thanks to the experts in medicine and public health, and it is making steady progress. Second reason to trust experts is the role is cultural and intellectual. Resorting to experts means problems can be solved rationally and objectively, and we can avoid any controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that we emerge from the COVID-19 tunnel with a strengthened public health system. Again, I really want to echo and underline what you said, Mr. President. I might mention a few things for us to think about. For example, can we transit to a good institution, transit to a model where we have an institution of disease control model, say, on the CDC? Can we establish a first-rate school of public health in this country, of international repute? One that can have an international reputation. How can a top-class public health lab complex be developed in this country? And there are so many things that one can think of. I just thought of this while I was writing this speech this morning, but I think this is something that your college will have to take up. I will come to that. Challenges like these and the nature of the pandemic present exceptional opportunities to your college to re-examine our public health system and to redesign it for the future, ensuring the centrality of primary health care and taking into consideration the social determinants of health. I am sure you will take up this challenge. Therefore, Mr. President and members of the college, we can visualize that your college, our college, will be very busy in the coming years because you have a great responsibility, a great opportunity to steer our public health system to higher levels of influence and productivity, where it deserves to remain. Please grasp that with both hands and with a passion, and you will be heralding a landmark era for public health in our country. As I close, let me wish the annual academic sessions all success and the College of Community Physicians a long and illustrious journey in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom and that realistic exposition. Now it is time for the highlight of tonight. The college oration tonight focuses on one of the most important areas of the current era, vaccines and vaccination for SARS-CoV-2. I again invite Dr. Nihal Abesinghe, the president of the college, to introduce the orator for tonight.
Thank you. Let me introduce the orator tonight. Professor Kang is Professor of Microbiology at the Wellcome Trust Research Laboratory, Division of Gastrointestinal Sciences at the Christian Medical College in Vellore. She has worked on the development and use of vaccines for rotaviruses, cholera and typhoid, conducting large studies to define burden, test vaccines, and measure their impact. She also studies the consequences of enteric infections and has shown that infections in early life impact future growth and cognitive development. She has established a strong training program for students and young faculty in clinical transitional medicine, aiming to build a cadre of clinical researchers studying relevant problems in India. She is the first Indian woman to be elected a Fellow of the Royal Society. She serves or has served on the Scientific Advisory or Strategic Committee of several national and international institutions, including the Wellcome Trust UK, the DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance, the International Vaccine Institute, and the International Centers for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. She is Vice Chair of the Board of Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations and a Wellcome Trust nominated board member of Hilleman Laboratories, which a partnership to support development affordable vaccines for low and middle income countries. She is a member of several advisory committees for the WHO, mainly related to research and use of vaccines. So I invite Professor Gagandeep Khan to deliver the oration.
I'd like to begin by thanking Dr. Nihal Abesinghe, your president, for inviting me to speak at the 26th annual academic meeting of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. I would have loved to be there in person. Colombo is a beautiful city, and I hope that you enjoy the meeting. I'm going to be speaking to you today about vaccines and vaccinations for SARS-CoV-2. And in the next 40 minutes or so, I hope to take you from where we started with vaccination to where we are currently, and hopefully also address some aspects of the future. Now, if we think about vaccines, we have to start usually with Edward Jenner and the disease that he was most interested in, which is smallpox. In the 1700s in Europe alone, 400,000 people died every year of smallpox. And while it may not have been Jenner who was the originator of the experiments with cowpox, he was certainly the one who popularized it and set up a method for being able to make enough cowpox virus to be distributed to people. So the experiments that he did with James Phipps, his gardener's son, who was given cowpox from the lesion of a milkmaid and was then inoculated with smallpox, and where it was shown that he did not develop disease, led to the production of vaccines that then very rapidly went around the world. Just 4 years later, vaccines were being given across Europe and North America, and in 100 years, smallpox had been eliminated from much of the industrialized world. It took another 50 years for eradication to happen in the Americas, and 25 years beyond that, we had the last people naturally infected with smallpox. And in 1709, WHO finally declared smallpox eradicated. So therefore, we know, or we should know, the value of prevention as an important tool in public health. Now, when we think about prevention, one of the things that we don't manage to prevent very well, and particularly in the past 30 years, is outbreaks. The number and their diversity have really increased over the past 30 years. And SARS-CoV-2 is one in a long line of infectious agents around the world. There is actually an alphabet of all the agents that come mainly from animals to humans and then cause outbreaks. and it goes from AIDS to Zika. Why do we see this spread from animals to humans? We see it because trade is increasing. Our population is living in much more densely populated areas. There is a lot of human displacement and migration, and deforestation results in animal habitats being devastated. With climate change, the habitat changes again, so we have much more animal-human contact, and therefore we provide opportunities for infectious agents to jump between species. And this is happening all too often. Most of the large outbreaks that we have seen, and particularly the ones that can travel easily, these are caused by viruses. Since 2000, we have had intercontinental spread of SARS-CoV, H1N1, MERS coronavirus, Ebola, Zika, and now SARS-CoV-2. If we look at the global risk report that is put out by the World Economic Forum, infectious diseases rank as a top risk by likelihood at number 4. And the top risks by impact is infectious diseases. We didn't really need the World Economic Forum to tell us that with the devastation we've had around us for the past year and a half. Now, what have we learned from that? We've had experience of outbreaks before. We've had experience of using vaccines for outbreaks before. And a key one in the mid-2010s was Ebola in West Africa, the first time that Ebola had emerged into urban areas in Africa. And because it was not in small villages in the forest, but in cities for the first time, there were thousands of cases of Ebola. This mainly affected 3 countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. And what was interesting about this outbreak was that there was actually a vaccine for the disease that had been made by the Public Health Agency of Canada in the early 2000s. This had been licensed to a company in the US, and the company had had the vaccine for 10 years and had done nothing with it because Ebola was a disease that was unpredictable. Its location was unpredictable. The number of people and places that it was going to be affecting was not something that was known. So even though the vaccine existed, it had never actually been tried to prevent disease in humans. So from the time the Ebola outbreak started to the time that the vaccine actually wound up going into people's arms for a trial was almost 7-8 months. And it took that long for WHO, for countries, for partners, for donors to be able to put together a regulatory pathway as well as a clinical trial pathway to begin the vaccine trials. Of course, once the vaccine trial started, it took only about 3 months to get the results that showed us that Ebola vaccines were working extremely well. But by that time, much of the epidemic was over. The cases had begun to decline because of very good contact tracing and infection control practices. So many lives that could have been saved by having vaccines earlier could not be saved in the end. So what did the world learn from Ebola? Well, actually, we had managed SARS-CoV, H1N1, Zika, and Ebola without vaccines. So the question came up, should we invest so much in preparedness with vaccines? Isn't it better for us to think about being prepared in other ways, in the ability to provide care? Well, from people who understand public health, we know well that prevention is better than cure. And preparation is important because we don't know what the scale of the response is likely to be. How big will an outbreak be? Where will it occur? And how long will it last? If we can be prepared for those outbreaks that can be responded to with vaccines, that makes it a lot simpler for us to have tools in place that could potentially be used. If we look at epidemics overall, we don't know what the screening needs are going to be. We don't have the diagnostic tests before the epidemics occur. We don't have trained staff. Hospitals are not built to have surge capacity, whether that is the number of beds or the people or the resources that are needed to handle a very large increase in cases. And of course, when you have an epidemic, as we've seen again with SARS-CoV-2, the impact on other programs can be quite dramatic. So in thinking about why we should be considering vaccines, the global community came up with a new initiative called CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, where the idea was to develop and evaluate in early stages vaccines that could potentially be used during outbreaks. This was in order to be able to ensure that if outbreaks occurred in poorer parts of the world, there would be vaccines and resources and an organization that would be able to come up with solutions to respond to that outbreak without the location or the country needing to worry about where the resources for such a response were going to come from. CEPI was established in 2017 and started its first funding programs in 2018. In 2019, CEPI developed a new program, which was the DiseaseX or Platform Technologies program. So in 2018 and 2019, CEPI identified 5 pathogens to work on: Lassa, MERS coronavirus, Nipah, and later Rift Valley fever and chikungunya. The idea was to advance at least one vaccine for each pathogen to phase 2A and make a stockpile of those vaccines. And for the DiseaseX platforms, it was really about the ability to respond really quickly. As soon as we have a sequence available, how quickly can a vaccine be made? And the goal for CEPI was to have a potential product within 3 months of the sequence being made. So when we got the sequence of SARS-CoV-2 on the 11th of January 2020, there were already several active projects that CEPI was focusing on, particularly on MERS coronavirus and on the platform technologies or DiseaseX programs. These were rapidly transitioned to SARS-CoV-2, with the first 3 grants being made just about 2 weeks after the sequence had been described. Now, why were we able ultimately to make vaccines so fast for SARS-CoV-2? It was really because we had lessons from other coronaviruses, particularly SARS-CoV. Now, SARS-CoV-2 disappeared because it was a virus for which symptoms appeared first, and then a person became infectious. That meant that by rapid isolation, it was possible to prevent SARS-CoV-2 human-to-human spread, and the disease was controlled without too many people being affected. But work on vaccines for SARS-CoV had already started, and those studies had shown that the receptor binding domain of the spike protein of SARS-CoV was an essential protein that allowed it to bind to the ACE2 receptor, shown here in green. So if it was possible to interrupt that binding of the receptor binding domain to ACE2, it would be possible to make a vaccine. Now, looking at the structure of the SARS-CoV-2 spike, it was very clear that the spikes of the two viruses were very similar, and therefore an approach that had been designed for SARS-CoV might work for SARS-CoV-2. In the end, other than the inactivated vaccines, almost every vaccine took the route of focusing on the spike protein. And it was because there had already been more than a decade of work on SARS-CoV-2 vaccines that we were able to move forward as rapidly as we did. In addition to the work that scientists had done building on their prior experience, there was the key role of regulators. Now, we know that in a usual regulatory pathway, it can take 10 or 15 years to develop a vaccine because each phase of testing is sequential. You finish the preclinical phase, then move into phase 1. You finish phase 1 with a small number of participants, then move into phase 2 testing. You finish phase 2 testing, and then you move into a large phase 3 trial to assess efficacy, after which you get approval, and then you start the manufacturing, and then introduce the vaccine and have post-marketing surveillance. What we were able to do with the cooperation and support of regulators was to have an accelerated pathway for SARS-CoV-2 vaccines, where instead of sequential phases, we had phases that ran in parallel. Phases that were combined, for example, phase 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, which meant that it became possible to shorten timelines. Regulators also agreed to rolling reviews of vaccine submissions, so that meant that it was possible for us to make vaccines in less than a year. And currently, we have multiple vaccines that are being manufactured and are being looked at in terms of effectiveness now that they are in widespread use. In addition to the work that scientists did and regulators did, we also had WHO and other partners think about the lessons that they needed to learn from H1N1 vaccination, where the rich countries were able to vaccinate their populations quickly, and poor countries got no doses or got them much after the acute phase of the H1N1 pandemic was over. So in April of 2020, the COVAX facility, which was the vaccine pillar of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, was established. And the idea was that CEPI would be responsible for research, development, and manufacturing. The World Health Organization would arrange for policy and allocations, and Gavi would be responsible for procurement and UNICEF for distribution. Now, this facility was established to accelerate equitable access to appropriate, safe, and efficacious vaccines. And so far, COVAX's commitment to 2 billion doses being distributed to countries around the world, it has been slow, but is on track to get almost to 2 billion by the end of this year. Much of the reason for the delays in the COVAX facility are because COVAX was relying on providers from India, the Serum Institute. And because of India's pandemic taking off in an exponential second wave, the government has limited exports of vaccine outside the country, and this has resulted both in COVAX not getting the number of doses that it needs at the time that it needs them, but also interruption of vaccination programs, including in Sri Lanka and other countries in South Asia and in Africa. So where are we now? We actually have a lot of different kinds of vaccines available. We have a number of vaccines in preclinical studies and about 100 vaccines that are in clinical studies. In phase 1, there are 51 vaccine candidates, 37 that are in phase 2 looking at immunogenicity, 32 in phase 3, which is clinical efficacy. 9 vaccines have been licensed and 8 are under emergency use authorization. So far, only 5 vaccines that had entered phase 1 clinical testing have been abandoned. Now, if we look at the vaccines and the ones that have WHO emergency use authorization, there are 17 vaccines that have been deployed to date. These are vaccines from all over the world, from Cuba to China to India and many other countries around the world. And there are 7 vaccines that have received so far WHO emergency use licenses and SAGE recommendations. Sinopharm, here you see 6 vaccines. That's because Sinopharm actually has 2 products for which there have been both WHO EUL as well as recommendations from SAGE. There are further vaccines that are currently under evaluation, and these include the Gamaleya vaccine or Sputnik, as well as the Indian Covaxin. Now, if we look at the platforms on which these vaccines have been made, I like to divide them up into older platforms, which is live attenuated, inactivated vaccines where you give the whole virus, or virus-like particles, and recombinant protein vaccines where you give parts of the virus. And in the case of SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, the parts that we give are all spike protein. And then below we have the new generation vaccines, the vectored vaccines, the DNA vaccines, and the RNA vaccines, all of which deliver a message to the host cell. And the message is the sequence of the spike protein. So these allow for the host cell to become a factory that then makes the protein, the spike protein, which is either released from the host cell or is displayed on the surface, or both. And then the immune system recognizes the spike protein and responds to it. Now, when we set out to have a target product profile, which was developed by WHO in May of 2020, the platform from which we were working was the experience with influenza vaccines. And we know that influenza vaccines don't work very well. And here was another new respiratory pathogen. So the target product profile asked for 50% efficacy, not more than 2 doses, a vaccine that would be at least usable in adults and give protection for 6 months. And essentially, practically every vaccine that we have has blown past this recommendation and is performing much better than we had dreamed a year ago. So we have many vaccines that now have efficacy data that are in use in different parts of the world, so much so that everyone now knows that we need vaccines to be able to handle this pandemic. Now, if we look at the vaccines that we have a number of inactivated vaccines: Sinovac, Sinopharm, Bharat Biotech, many others that are being made in other countries. Most of these vaccines have shown good efficacy, above 50% and as much as 80% for some products. These are in use in many countries, but where they have been used very widely, there have been some reports of low protection, particularly in data that have been coming out from the United Arab Emirates, from Mongolia, and from the Seychelles. The UAE is now recommending boosters with a different class of vaccines, and we'll need to wait and see what happens in other countries. So far, it does appear that these vaccines protect and protect well against severe disease. The question now is, how long will the protection last with these vaccines and against the various variants that have begun to emerge? Now, if we look at protein subunit vaccines, these can be individual subunits given with an adjuvant or in the form of virus-like particles. So these are mostly the spike protein or the receptor binding domain. Shown here is the Novavax vaccine, where the spike protein elements self-assemble to form these flower-like nanoparticles, which consists of multiple units of the spike protein. Novavax has shown that it is very effective, 96% for the alpha variant, 96% for D614G, 86% for the alpha variant, and about 51% in the Republic of South Africa for non-HIV infected individuals. They are expecting to do a regulatory filing in the third quarter of 2021. And this vaccine will also be made in India as Covovax by the Serum Institute of India. We also have recently had data on 2 vaccines from Cuba. Soberana 02 is a receptor binding domain with a tetanus toxoid conjugate. This has shown 62% efficacy with 2 doses of a 3-dose series. And the data for the Abdallah protein subunit vaccine just came out and demonstrate 92% efficacy. There are also other protein subunit vaccines that are in use, but for which no efficacy data have been reported so far. Now, coming to mRNA vaccines, these have been a remarkable success story in this pandemic. And while there is a huge amount of enthusiasm, I think we'll have to wait and see if these are the magic bullet for every outbreak. So Moderna and Pfizer vaccines have shown 95% efficacy, and they both have prepared new products for the beta variant, but have also shown that if you immunize or with another dose, give a booster of the same product, then you also see a broadening of the immune response, which protects against variants as well. The Pfizer vaccine has been approved for 12-year-olds, and both vaccines have trials that are ongoing for younger participants. One of the interesting things about these vaccines was that even though there was very clear data showing that the immune response improved significantly only after the second dose of the vaccine, in real life, when the first dose was given, you began to see protection about 10 days after the first dose. And this seems to indicate that there is something beyond the presence of antibodies that contributes to protection. So there is a lot of work that is now examining cellular immune responses with these and other vaccines. When these vaccines were rolled out, these are data from Israel, it was shown very quickly that the Pfizer vaccine protected very, very well. So there was above 90% protection against infection, symptomatic infection, and against severe disease. And these data became available towards the end of January, thus raising the world's hopes that we had really good solutions to the pandemic. More recently, we have had data from Israel where over 90% of the cases that they are seeing now are due to the Delta variant. And there it has been shown that the Pfizer vaccine offers less protection against the Delta variant for infection, about 65%, but protection against severe disease is still maintained at above 90%. Coming to the viral vectored vaccines, the ones that are in the news are the University of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, the Gamaleya vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now, the AstraZeneca vaccine uses a chimpanzee adenovirus, and this has been evaluated in clinical trials in multiple countries. Efficacy trials were done in UK, Brazil, South Africa, Japan, Russia, as well as in the US. There was some initial messiness with the dosing of the studies done in the UK, as well as with the interval that was used. But the US trial, which had above 70% efficacy, had a fixed interval of 4 weeks and showed that the vaccine worked very well. For Gamaleya, which consists of 2 adenovirus vectors, AD26 and AD5, this has shown 92% efficacy. We also have a single dose vaccine. This is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, AD26, which has shown 74% efficacy in the US against symptomatic infection, but almost 100% against severe disease. This was also evaluated in Brazil and South Africa and had somewhat less protection, but generally not too bad against severe disease. This vaccine is supposed to be made in India through Biological E and is to be supported through the Quad, which is a grouping of India, Australia, Japan, and the US. Now, if we look at the real world performance of the AstraZeneca vaccine in the UK decided early to have a 12-week dosing interval so that they could vaccinate more people faster, particularly with the elderly. There it was shown that the vaccine worked really well, so much so that with the Alpha variant, 1 dose of AstraZeneca vaccine decreased severe disease or death by 80% in over 70-year-olds. It was also shown that 1 dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine decreased household spread by half after about 2 weeks, demonstrating that the vaccines worked well. And the figures were very similar for the BioNTech vaccine as well. Now, that was data at a time when the Alpha variant was circulating in the UK. And we know that from December of 2020 onwards, we have seen the emergence of multiple variants that have now been classified in many ways by many people. These started out with being named after lineages, then being named by numbers, and now they are named by the WHO according to the Greek letters. So what can happen and why do we get variants? We get variants because the virus replicates, and each time it replicates, it has the opportunity to make a mistake. Now, when a mistake is made, either nothing happens or the virus dies, can't replicate anymore, or it becomes more fit, more able to replicate even better. And that's what we've seen with the variants of concern. All of them are viruses that have learned to replicate even better. And the one that is bothering the world right now is the Delta variant, which emerged in India. It was first described in 2020, but has really taken off since March of this year. Now, if we look at the naming of variants, the Delta variant is also known as the 21A clade. It's called the B16172 or the Delta variant, and it has had a number of different names. The purpose of naming these variants by numbers is to show where they've come from, and naming them by Greek letters is to essentially make sure that they are not assigned to one particular geographic area. So what can happen with variants? And in these figures here, I'm just showing you the data from Singapore, Sri Lanka, and India. In the darker pink color is the Alpha variant, and in the green color is the Delta variant. And you can see that in Singapore and in India, in June 2021, we have a predominance of the Delta variant. In Sri Lanka, this does not appear to be the case, but I will point out that the number of sequences from Sri Lanka were much, much fewer than the sequences that were available from Singapore and India, almost 100 times fewer sequences. So what can happen with these variants? We know that vaccines are working reasonably well against these variants, but the viruses are evolving to become more transmissible. So they are also evolving to be able to escape the immune response. And this has been seen to variable extents with the beta and gamma variants, which have the E484K mutations. This has been seen in vaccine trials, but it's unclear there that severe disease is not prevented, as we saw from the studies from Israel and other parts of the world. The Delta variant does not have the E484K. It has L452R and other mutations. It's one of the three sublineages of B1617, and the other two are considered variants of interest and not variants of concern. So if we look at 21A or Delta and how it is doing globally, you can see that we had Alpha and it took over, but the situation that we are in at a global level is that Delta is growing very, very rapidly. We know now that it is the commonest clade that is being seen in Russia, in the UK, in the US, and many other parts of the world. It does seem to be a strain that is much more transmissible than others. Now, how are different vaccines doing against different variants? In Qatar, Pfizer has 89% protection against Alpha. It has 75% protection against beta for infection, but against severe disease, it is above 97% protection. In the UK, the AstraZeneca vaccine, there was a lot of worry in May when it was shown that effectiveness against infection with Delta was about 17% lower after one dose and 6% lower after the second dose compared to Alpha. But subsequently, data on severe disease have become available. And we know now that it's 71% protection against Delta with one dose and 92% after two doses. So this speaks to why having one dose distributed to more of the population may be better than giving half of the population two doses. Now, variants will continue to emerge if the world does not get vaccinated. And if we look at the data that we have, 10 countries have administered the bulk of doses, and China has obviously given out the most. India has now climbed to the number 2 position, but India also has a humongous population. So 1.4 billion people, out of whom 950 million need to receive 2 doses of vaccine. So if you look at doses per 100 population, even though India's given out a lot of vaccine, among the top 10 countries, its percentage vaccinated is much, much lower. So there are issues that are coming up and that need to be addressed, because we know that we are going to have an increased supply of vaccines in the 3rd and 4th quarters of this year. And we need to think about what we can do to make sure that when vaccines are available, we use them as quickly and effectively as possible. Vaccine hesitancy is increasing around the world. Uptake has been slow in many countries, particularly in parts of Africa. In some parts of Africa, vaccines have expired before use. So there was interestingly a swap that was just done between Israel and South Korea, where doses in Israel that were going to expire was sent to South Korea, and South Korea has promised to return those doses later in the year. Many countries, even if they are given vaccines, don't have the funds to be able to distribute them, and that is a significant concern being addressed by UNICEF. There is very low reporting of safety in some countries, particularly in low and middle income countries, and it's important that this is emphasized. And because supply and timelines are unclear, it is very difficult to understand when COVAX will be able to get vaccines to specific countries. There are also issues around policy and regulation. A lot of discussion now on mix and match studies, whether we can use vaccines interchangeably. There are still concerns about how some vaccines will work against the variants of concern. We have data for the Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines, but not for others. Cold chain requirements, I think for mRNA vaccines, this is essential to be able to use them more widely. And fortunately, we've had new recommendations for the Pfizer vaccine. And then safety is an ongoing concern for thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome for the adenovirus vectored vaccines, and myocarditis with the mRNA vaccines. But overall, WHO recommends that the benefits of vaccination outweigh the risks. WHO has also updated the roadmap for prioritizing use of COVID-19 vaccines and has moved up pregnancy and children with comorbidities into stage 2, adding them to people who have comorbidities. In terms of vaccine supply scenarios, the original recommendations were for up to 30% of the population of the country. Now it has been moved to 50% of the population of a country, and it's likely that this will go higher because it appears clear that we are going to need to vaccinate at least 70% of the world. Another key recommendation is to not consider stockpiles, but to make sure that all the vaccine that is available is used as quickly as possible. There are vaccines that are yet to come. There are vaccines in clinical development, vaccines in preclinical development, and the world is now thinking about, for the next pandemic, could we have a vaccine that is made and in use in 100 days instead of 300 days as we had last year. In India alone, there are a lot of vaccines that are being made on many different platforms, and it's while some of them may fail, it's likely that these vaccines will be made in very large numbers by the end of the year, and that might help address some parts of global supply, along with the ramping up of mRNA vaccines in other parts of the world. Now, in terms of the 100-day vaccine, it sounds kind of aspirational, but the Moderna vaccine was actually designed in 2 days and produced in 6 weeks. So what we need to be thinking about is what kinds of trials and regulatory systems do we need to be able to make a 100-day vaccine happen to prepare for the next pandemic. And then, of course, we have all the unknown unknowns. What's next? Do we really need a vaccine for every outbreak? What are we missing? And what should we be doing to be thinking about preparedness now? So I will thank you very much once again for the invitation. It's just such a privilege and an honor to be able to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam, for that enlightening presentation. It is now time to felicitate some of the champions of the public health field. In order to honor their immense contribution for the betterment of the public health in Sri Lanka and beyond, the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka will be awarded to them. I call upon Dr. Anuji Gamage, the Secretary of the College, and Dr. Dushyanti Aligevanna, the Assistant Secretary of the College, to introduce these champions tonight.
Thank you, Kiara. Dr. Haputhantrigre Tushara Iraj Indrajit Fernando. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Haputhantrigre Tushara Iraj Indrajit Fernando as a recipient of the 2021 Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. During the past 35 years, Dr. Tushara Fernando has made a significant contribution to the public health profession in different capacities, ranging from service provider to a diplomat for public health advocacy. He completed his primary and secondary education at St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, and graduated from Colombo Medical Faculty in 1986. After the post-internship, he joined the National Institute of Health Sciences, Kalathara. He completed the master's degree in computer medicine in 1994 and received the doctorate in computer medicine from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine in Sri Lanka in 1998. His postdoctoral training was at California State University, Long Beach, USA, which awarded him a second master's degree in public health. In year 2000, Dr. Fernando was appointed as the Director Planning of Ministry of Health. In 2004, Dr. Fernando joined the WHO Country Office, Sri Lanka, in the area of health system strengthening and continued with his career advancement to join the WHO Southeast Asia Region Office, New Delhi, followed by 2-year tenure in WHO Country Office in Nepal in the area of health systems development. In 2010, he was appointed as the Regional Planning Officer for WHO CRO, where he held twice from 2010 to 2012 and 2014 to 2015. Dr. Fernando served as the WHO representative in Bangladesh for a period of 2 years and as the WHO representative in Democratic People's Republic in Korea. He is currently appointed as the coordinator of the Department of Healthier Population and Non-Communicable Diseases in WHO CRO office. His contribution in different capacities shaping up policies and strategies on public health and other related determinants in Sri Lanka and in several other Southeast Asian countries has been remarkable while working under extreme difficult conditions at times. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present Dr. Haputantigre Tushara Iraj Indrajit Fernando to you for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Palitha Gunaratna Mahipala. I am privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Palitha Gunaratna Mahipala for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Palitha Mahipala graduated from the University of Peradeniya in 1983 and obtained postgraduate specialization in community medicine from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo in 1995. Dr. Mahipala also done his Doctor of Medicine in Medical Administration and Masters of Business Administration. He is a Fellow of the College of Medical Administration, Sri Lanka. Dr. Mahipala started his career as a medical officer in the divisional level in Sri Lanka. He served his country at the level of Director Tertiary Care Services, Deputy Director General Health Services, Additional Secretary Medical Services and Director General of Health Services at the national level and joined the WHO Southeast Asian region as coordinator of the non-communicable diseases and environmental health in December 2016. Dr. Mahipala has a diverse experience in the field of family medicine, health and population services, community health development, IDP care and rehabilitation, primary eye health, hospital development, administration and management. Dr. Mahipala has given the leadership as the Director General of Health Services to eliminate malaria and filariasis and also for the WHO certification. Under his direct guidance, many policy documents developed, including National Health Policy 2016 to 2025. He was a member of many advisory committees, medical boards, foundations, councils, and associations, and has a number of publications to his credit. Dr. Palitha Mahipala is assigned as the WHO Head of Mission Representative in Pakistan from 18th April 2019. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Palitha Gunaratna Mahipala for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Chandani Dhammika Gunaratna. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Chandani Dhammika Gunaratna as a recipient of the 2021 Fellowship of College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Chandani Dhammika Gunaratna had her primary and secondary education at Vishaka Vidyalaya, Colombo, and graduated from the Faculty of Medicine in 1976. Obtained her MSc and MD Community Medicine from the Postgraduate Medicine Institute of Medicine, Colombo, and Masters in Public Health, Nutrition, and a Diploma in Human Nutrition from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She was board certified as a consultant community physician in 1995. She is also a registered public health nutritionist in Australia. She took over the post of Director Nutrition in 1997. The first edition of the Food-Based Dietary Guidelines and Vitamin A Supplementation Policy were initiated during her tenure. Also, the urban slum, estate sector, and fishing communities complementary feeding, adolescent nutrition, rapid assessment of nutritional status of children at child care homes were followed up with target pop group training, preparation of handbooks, nutrition training curricula for the public health staff were developed. She took a major role in developing the community medicine curriculum and the professional and personal development stream curriculum at the medical faculty of Wamba University, in which she held the post of senior lecturer grade 1 for a period of 2 years. She has much experience in working with international organizations such as the World Bank, WHO, UNICEF, the World Food Programme on public health nutrition related activities. She has served as a council member in the Population Association of Sri Lanka, Nutrition Society, and the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Chandani Dhammika Gunaratna for the conferment of the Fellowship of College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. D.S. Rajasingham. I am privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. D.S. Rajasingham for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. D.S. Rajasingham graduated from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, and he obtained his MSc in Community Medicine from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo. Dr. Rajasingham served as the Ministry of Health at the Epidemiology Unit from 1992 to 2001 as a medical officer and as assistant epidemiologist. He was primarily involved in the communication division of the Epidemiology Unit and was the editor of the weekly epidemiological report for several years, improving the content and the presentation and expanding the distribution of the publication every week. He was also involved in conducting several communicable disease outbreak investigations at the Epidemiology Unit and served as a visiting lecturer for undergraduate courses in community medicine at the Universities of Colombo and Sri Jayawardhanapura. Prior to his time at the Epidemiology Unit, he served as the Medical Officer of Health, Badulla, from 1986 to 1991, and also as the Regional Epidemiologist, Badulla District, during 1991, enabling immunization, antenatal and child welfare clinics to run smoothly even during times of great public turmoil. He also acted as the Medical Officer Maternal and Child Health of Badulla District during 1991. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. D.S. Rajasingham for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Supriya Varasuvithana. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Supriya Varasuvithana for the award of Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Supriya Varasuvithana obtained her MSc and MD Community Medicine in 1994 and 2000 respectively. During her career in anti-malaria campaign from 1994 to 2004, she has contributed significantly to the control of malaria and paving the way for eliminating malaria in Sri Lanka. Dr. Supriya co-authored the book 100 Years of Malaria Control Efforts in Sri Lanka. In 2004, she joined the WHO and initially served in Sri Lanka country office and contributed to the establishment of National Dengue Control Program. She has facilitated standardization of the clinical management of DHF, leading to significant reduction in case fatality during the massive outbreaks of dengue. Dr. Varasuvithana developed the first country strategy for the accelerated program in rabies control and elimination and mobilized considerable amount of external funding to support disease control programs. She contributed to the rebuild the tsunami hit health services in Eastern Province. As the HIV STI control focal point in WHO Nepal during 2012-2015, she provided technical expertise to the Ministry of Health and other stakeholders for policy training, analysis, strategy development, monitoring and evaluation of the program delivery, and scale up of HIV, TB, HIV, STIs, and hepatitis prevention, care and treatment services. She developed the National HIV Drug Resistance Surveillance and Monitoring Strategy in Nepal and was involved in developing the National Viral Load Scale-Up Plan and established the National Hepatitis Advisory Group and coordinated the development of national guidelines for diagnosis, care and treatment of hepatitis C infection in Nepal. Being the program manager at WHO Afghanistan during 2015 to 2019, she was involved in developing the comprehensive national policies, strategies, implementation plans for the control of communicable and non-communicable diseases. She provided the leadership in integration and scaling up of leishmaniasis treatment and surveillance, revamped the management of drug-resistant TB, introduced new anti-TB drugs and TB regimes, and established pharmacovigilance and active drug safety monitoring and management system for anti-TB medicines in Afghanistan. She is currently working as the regional advisor, neglected tropical diseases, WHO Eastern Mediterranean Regional Office. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Supriya Varasuvithana for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Gunasena Sunil Senanayaka. I am privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Gunasena Sunil Senanayaka for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Gunasena Sunil Senanayaka entered the Faculty of Medicine in 1975, becoming the first medical student produced by Taxila Central College, Horana. He obtained his MSc and MD in Community Medicine in 1990 and 1994 respectively. In 1994, he joined the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, England. During this period, he has obtained many training opportunities related to the public health, including ICD-10 mobility coding. Dr. Senanayaka became the Director, Health Information of the Ministry of Health and devoted his career to strengthen the health information systems in Sri Lanka. He modified the formats of hospital records to provide adequate information to develop electronic patient records. He established training programs in medical record management and ICD-10 training programs at the National Institute of Health Services, Kalutara, for the first time in Southeast Asia. He was the National Coordinator for Health of the President Task task force on Y2K in Sri Lanka. Dr. Senanayaka was instrumental in developing health sector master plan 2005 to 2015 and HRH plan in 2002 for the Ministry of Health. He served as a member of the Board of Studies in Community Medicine during 2002 to 2006 period and supervised many MSc and MD trainees in both community medicine and medical administration. In 2006, Dr. Senanayaka joined the WHO Pacific region and served as a medical officer, health information and surveillance in WHO country office in Vanuatu, and served as the regional advisor in health information at Western Pacific region office, and also served as regional advisor in health information, national health planning and health system management attached to the WHO regional office in Southeast Asia, achieving many public health successes. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Gunasena Sunil Senanayaka for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Thelge Sudat Rohana Peiris. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Thelge Sudat Rohana Peiris for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Sudat Peiris graduated from the Colombo Medical Faculty in 1983. He completed his MSc in Community Medicine in 1990. He obtained his Masters of Science degree in Epidemiology and Biostatistics in University of Brussels and Certificate of Epidemiology at University of Liverpool. He was attached to the Epidemiology Unit entrusted with work related to control of diarrheal diseases, program, control of acute respiratory diseases, program and expanded program of immunization. WHO used Dr. Peiris's multifaceted and vast experience in the field of vaccines and immunization by inviting him to many global technical advisory bodies such as WHO Global Advisory Committee on Immunization Safety, WHO GTN Advisory Committee on Immunization Training, WHO SAGE Working Group on Measles Elimination, and several other global advisory bodies appointed by WHO and Gavi. Dr. Peiris was a member of WHO Technical Assessment and Review Teams. He was a global trainer in immunization safety and surveillance, vaccine management, and immunization program management. He was the course coordinator and course director of the WHO Global Training Network Center for Immunization Safety Surveillance established at the Epidemiology Unit and trained program managers from 42 countries. Currently, Dr. Peiris is working with WHO Timor-Leste, transforming the EPI program of the country, leading to achieve eliminations of measles and control rubella ahead of many countries in the region. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Thelge Sudat Rohana Peiris for the conferment of the Fellowship of College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Herbert S. B. Tennakoon. I am privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Herbert S. B. Tennakoon for the award of the Fellowship of prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. H.S. B. Tennakoon graduated from the Medical Faculty of the University of Peradeniya in the year 1979. He obtained MSc in Community Medicine in 1992 and MPH in Health Policy and Administration from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, USA in 1994. He opted to join the career in medical administration and worked as a medical superintendent, deputy director, director training, and director international health in the Ministry of Health. In the year 1998, he moved to the Deputy Director General grade, where he was appointed as the Deputy Director General Medical Services 2. Later, he got appointed as DDG Planning. In 2006, he joined the WHO and served as health planner at WHO Nepal, as WHO representative to Bhutan, and as WHO representative to Myanmar. In 2013, he was appointed as the Assistant Regional Director for the WHO CRO, New Delhi, until his retirement in 2014. He worked as the Manager Healthcare at Sri Lanka Red Cross Society, where he gave leadership for all its healthcare associated activities, including all its public health related work. While serving in the Ministry of Health Sri Lanka, he got involved as a co-investigator to a global level survey during 1996-1997 period on equity in health and healthcare, coordinated by WHO Geneva. He was one of the co-authors to develop the Ministry of Health Manual on integrating personal prevention care in curative care services. He was also the author of the chapter on human resource management in the Manual of Management for Provincial Directors of Health Services, Ministry of Health. He actively contributed to the study on gaps in capacity in primary care in low resource settings for implementation of essential NCD interventions. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. H.S.B. Tennakone for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Ananda Amarasinghe. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Ananda Amarasinghe as a recipient of the 2021 Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Amarasinghe completed his secondary education at Ananda College, Colombo, and graduated at Kharkov Medical College, Ukraine in 1989. He completed his MSc and MD Community Medicine in 1994 and 2000 respectively from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo. His role and responsibility expanded nationally as a senior epidemiologist at the Epidemiology Unit from 2001 to 2016, using the knowledge and wide experiences gained in both locally and internationally. Dr. Amarasinghe planned and implemented various public health strategies, interventions in the field of communicable diseases control, vaccine preventable diseases, and immunization in Sri Lanka. Dr. Amarasinghe pioneered in introducing pentavalent vaccines with the Gavi support in 2008 and establishing the functional vaccine and immunization safety surveillance system in Sri Lanka. He is one of the global experts in vaccine safety and served as a member of WHO Global Advisory Committee in Vaccine Safety from 2008 to 2015. He is the lead author of WHO Global and Western Pacific Regional Guidelines in Vaccine and Immunization Safety Surveillance and Sri Lanka National Guides on Surveillance of Adverse Events Following Immunization. Dr. Amarasinghe was a strategic team leader who developed national immunization policy in Sri Lanka in 2015. He authored and co-authored more than 40 peer-reviewed international publications, including vaccine safety and publications on vaccine safety and dengue. He joined WHO Western Pacific Region Office, where currently he leads immunization systems and safety, and continues to work sharing his knowledge and experiences at regional and global platforms. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Ananda Amarasinghe for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Shiromi Manjula de Silva Maduage. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Shiromi Manjula de Silva Maduage for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Shiromi Maduage completed her secondary education at Devi Balika College, Colombo, and obtained her medical degree from the North Colombo Medical College, Sri Lanka. She completed her MSc and MD in Community Medicine from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo, and was board certified in 2008. Since 2011, she is working as a consultant community physician in the Youth, Elderly and Disability Unit of the Ministry of Health and serves in this capacity to date. Dr. Shiromi contributed immensely to the upliftment of health and well-being of the elderly and persons with disabilities nationally and internationally. Considering her immense contribution towards the well-being of the elderly, she is appointed as a council member to the National Council for Elders by His Excellency the President of Sri Lanka. She has taken the leadership in development of national elderly healthcare policy and national rehabilitation guidelines. She is a lecturer, a supervisor and an examiner at the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine and a visiting lecturer to the Allied Sciences faculty of the Kothalawala Defence University. She is a researcher with skills in conducting many research and experienced in supervising research projects. She has published many scientific papers, including in many journals and in International Handbook of Elder Abuse and Mistreatment. She has obtained competencies in providing technical expertise in conducting international and national level scientific conferences, including being the conference chair for the International Conference of Gerontology and Geriatric Medicine in 2019 and 2020. She has obtained public health working experience at Public Health Department, National Health Services, Somerset, United Kingdom, and she serves as an honorary council member to the International Institute on Aging in UN Malta Satellite Center for SAARC countries. She is a life member of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka since 2008 and was a council member for 7 years. She was a secretary to the CCPSL Council in 2016 to 2017, treasurer to the CCPSL Council in 2018-2019, and the conference chair for 2 consecutive councils of the CCPSL. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Shiromi Manjula de Silva Maduage for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021. Dr. A.K.S.K. Arya Ratna. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. A.K.S.K. Arya Ratna for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Kanti Arya Ratna obtained her medical degree in 1984. She has obtained her MSc and MD in Community Medicine in 1990 and 1996 respectively. She joined the Health Education Bureau of the Ministry of Health in 1992 and served in this capacity of a medical officer until 2003. In 2003, she became a senior medical administrator of the Ministry of Health and held the post of acting director and deputy director of Health Education Bureau, providing the leadership and technical guidance to the whole health promotion and health communication program of the country. She has been a mentor and trainer in advocacy, social mobilization and communication for the public health staff, university undergraduates, university postgraduates and media personnel. Dr. Arya Ratna joined the World Health Organization Country Office Sri Lanka in 2007 as the communication officer initially and subsequently held the post of temporary national professional officer for communication and health promotion and facilitated and supported in the implementation of national health promotion and education program while contributing to strengthen the communication capacity of the WHO country office till 2010. She held the position of the Director, Private Health Sector Development and Secretary to the Private Health Services Regulatory Council of the Ministry of Health. She also held the position of the director in the National Program for Tuberculosis Control and Chest Diseases of the Ministry of Health. She has co-authored the first ever advocacy, communication and social mobilization strategy for prevention of tuberculosis in Sri Lanka. She has conducted many research and presented scientific papers in many academic forums, nationally and international level. Since 1986, she is a life member of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka and served as a treasurer to the CCPSL Council in 2004 to 2005. She served as a council member to the CCPSL from 2004 to 2006. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Kanti Aryaratne for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Kulatunga Vijayakon Mudyanselage Netranjali Mapitigama. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Kulatunga Vijayakon Mudyanselage Netranjali Mapitigama for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Netranjali Mapitigama completed her secondary education at Visakha Vidyalaya, Bambalapitiya, and obtained her medical degree from the State University of Moscow in 1988. She worked as medical officer of maternal and child health, Badula district. As MOMCH, one major achievement was her contribution to the development of the format for reviewing maternal deaths. She completed her MSc and MD in Community Medicine from the PGIM University of Colombo and both certified in 2001. In 2003, she was assigned as the first National Program Manager of the Gender and Women's Health Unit of the Family Health Bureau and serves in this capacity to date. Dr. Netranjali Mapitigama contributed immensely to the upliftment of health and well-being of the Sri Lankan women. Dr. Netranjali initiated the development of the package on health sector response to gender-based violence and pioneered the Mithuru Pearsa concept. She is a lecturer, a trainer, a supervisor, and an examiner for health and non-health staff in basic, in-service, and postgraduate training in public health. In 2010, she was appointed by His Excellency the President of Sri Lanka as a member of the National Committee on Women for a period of 4 years. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Kulatunga Vijayakon Mudyanselage Netranjali Mapitigama for the conferment of the Fellowship of College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Harish Chandra Yakandavala. I am privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Harish Chandra Yakandavala for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Harish Chandra Yakandavala completed his secondary education at Ginigathena Central College and graduated from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Peradeniya in 1981. In 1992, he obtained MSc Community Medicine from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo, and joined the Health Education Bureau as a medical officer and coordinated for school health, sexual and reproductive health, and HIV/AIDS prevention programs. Dr. Yakandavala has contributed in public awareness on prevention of HIV/AIDS from the beginning of the National HIV/AIDS program from its inception. He obtained his postgraduate diploma in writership and mass communication from the University of Sri Jawadanapura in the year 2000. In 2000, he joined UNDP as the National Consultant on Prevention of HIV/AIDS, and in 2003, he joined the UNICEF as the National Program Officer in Adolescent and HIV/AIDS. He contributed to conduct National Adolescent Survey and initiated the development of the National Adolescent Health Policy. In 2009, he joined WHO as the National Professional Officer, Environmental and Occupational Health, and emergency and humanitarian action. Establishment of the disaster preparedness and response unit at the Ministry of Health and development of public health disaster management system were his key contributions during this period. His services were appreciated with the Award of Excellence in Health Emergency Management in 2015 by the WHO and also by the University of Peradeniya and the Ministry of Health. In 2011, he joined Sarvodaya as the program manager in GFATM HIV/AIDS prevention program and managed gathering and mapping of key populations. In 2013, he joined the Fiji National University as the assistant professor at the School of Public Health in Fiji Island. In 2016, he joined as a medical director of Family Planning Association and continues as the consultant up to date for the International Planned Parenthood Federation SRH during emergency sprint program in Sri Lanka since 2010. In 2009, he founded the Village 60 Plus Private Limited, which is an elderly care service. He is a member of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka since 1996 up to date. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Harish Chandra Yakandawala for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Ruan Ferdinando. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Ruan Ferdinando as a recipient of the 2021 Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Ruan Ferdinando completed his secondary education in Royal College, Colombo, and graduated from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. He obtained MSc and MD in Community Medicine in 2001 and 2006 respectively, and MA in Sociology, Advanced Diploma in Psychology, Advanced Diploma in Psychological Counseling, and a Diploma in Web Engineering. Also, he has obtained formal training in medical anthropology. He serves as a consultant community physician planning and as the head of the Department of Management in the WHO Collaborating Center for Public Health Workforce Development NIHS Kaluthara. He is also the chairperson Ethics Review Committee of NIHS. As a member of the Board of Study Community Medicine, he has been actively involved in revision of the Community Medicine curricula MSc in 2013 and MD in 2015. He has contributed to the training in clinical and practical skill modules, health promotion module, and capacity building modules in the MSc and MD Community Medicine curricula. He has also served as a member of the Specialty Board in Clinical Nutrition in PGIM. While serving as the Deputy Director Training at NIHS, he has designed and undertaken several innovative training programs such as the public health legislation for postgraduate trainees in community medicine and community dentistry, and also for the medical officers of health, and developed curricula for various categories of public health professionals. He served as the secretary to the expert group for suicide prevention at the SLMM. He was instrumental in the 2 national health research symposia conducted by the Ministry of Health, which were the first ever national research conference organized by the Ministry of Health. He also initiated training communication skills to the pre-intern medical officers in the Good Intern Training Program. He is the Vice President, Institute of Psychology Counseling, Psychotherapy and Allied Professions of Sri Lanka, and one of the founder editors-in-chief of the Sri Lanka Journal of Health Research. He has served as an examiner in the University of Colombo and many undergraduate and postgraduate institutes. Since 2003, he is a member of the CCPSL, immediate past editor for the CCPSL, serving continuously for 3 years, and a council member of the CCPSL in some years. He was instrumental in designing and developing the CCPSL website. He also included the JCCPSL platform to this website with all past journals of the JCPSL. He was also instrumental in developing position papers of the CCPSL during the COVID-19 pandemic, in publishing special issues of the Journal of College of Community Physicians Sri Lanka. He has taken the leadership in developing the YouTube channel of the CCPSL, which was launched recently. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Ruan Ferdinando for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Ayesha Lokubala Surya. I am privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Ayesha Lokubala Surya for the award of the Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Ayesha Lokubala Surya ni Karunaratna has completed her secondary education at Visakha Vidyalaya, Colombo. She obtained her medical degree in 1990 from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. Dr. Lokubala Surya obtained her MSc in 1994 and MD in Community Medicine in 1999 from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo, and obtained board certification in the year 2000 as a specialist in community medicine. She was appointed as the Medical Officer Maternal and Child Health in Gampaha District in 1996, where she found her affinity towards maternal and child health, where she was able to bring a notable change in district's MCH indicators above national level. Dr. Ayesha Lokubala Surya joined the Family Health Bureau as the National Program Manager, School Health. She pioneered in introducing health promoting school programs, healthy canteen policy for schools, and many more. Her affinity towards adolescent health has resulted in establishing a dedicated unit for adolescent health and in bringing out many adolescent-friendly policy changes in delivering adolescent health services. Her capacity to coordinate and collaborate and to bring professional cohesion among multiple disciplines to achieve a common goal was well illustrated. Dr. Lokubala Surya has been a strong advocator in protecting child's rights in Sri Lanka and contributed immensely as a member of National Human Rights Committee from 2015 and as a member of the Board of Directors of the National Child Protection Authority. She is a scientific researcher and a much sought after academic supervisor and a mentor for juniors. Dr. Lokubala Surya has been a council member of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka and worked for 12 consecutive years as a member of the Board of Studies in Community Medicine, contributing to improvements in postgraduate education. President Sir, considering the great contribution made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Ayesha Lokubala Surya for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Dr. Inoka Kamalini Suravira. I'm privileged and deeply honored to introduce Dr. Inoka Kamalini Suravira for the award of Fellowship of the prestigious College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Inoka Kamalini Suravira completed her school education at Malayadeva Balika Mahavidyalaya and graduated from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. She obtained her MSc and MD Community Medicine in 2001 and 2009 respectively from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo. She was board certified as a specialist in community medicine in 2010. She is working in the Environmental and Occupational Health Directorate of the Ministry of Health as a consultant community physician and has been actively involved in developing the National Occupational Health Program of the Ministry of Health. She has contributed to the development of national occupational safety and health policy in Sri Lanka. She serves as a member of the national level committee in chemical safety, air resource management, and climate change. She is actively engaged in both undergraduate and postgraduate medical teaching in the areas of occupational and environmental health. Dr. Suravira has published several journal articles in occupational health and environmental health in peer-reviewed journals and has represented Sri Lanka in many regional and international fora. She is a member of the International Commission on Occupational Health and a prestigious member of the College of Ramsani in Italy. She is a life member of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka and has held the posts of Treasurer and Secretary in addition to serving in the Council for several years. President Sir, considering the great contributions made to the field of public health, I present to you Dr. Inoka Kamalini Suravira for the conferment of the Fellowship of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka for the year 2021.
Thank you so much, sir, for immensely immensely acknowledging our fellows this evening. I would like to invite Dr. Nihala Besingha, the President of the College, to award Dr. Sumudu Karunaratna for obtaining the best results during the MD Community Medicine examination for 2020. Thank you, sir. As our proceedings have now come to an end, I would like to invite Dr. Anuji Gamage, the Secretary of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Chiara. Good evening to all of you. Dr. Palita Abekon, Professor Kang, past presidents, fellows, council members of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, college members of the Community Physicians of Sri Lanka, officials from the Ministry of Health and other ministries, officials from the development partners and non-governmental organization, distinguished guests and friends. It's my great privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this renowned occasion to the distinguished gathering on behalf of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. Dr. Palita Abekon, Sir, WHO Director General Special Envoy for COVID-19 for Southeast Asia, Advisor to the WHO Country Office and to the Regional Director of the WHO Southeast Asia region. Sir, we are indeed honored to have you with us today. The support and encouragement provided by your presence today is very much appreciated. A big thank you, sir. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for the orator tonight, Prof. Kang, for the explanation provided on vaccines and vaccinations of SARS-CoV-2. We are all inspired by your great words and insight. I would also like to place on record our hearty thanks to all past presidents, fellows, council and college members, higher officials of Ministry of Health, representatives of the UN agencies and other professional organizations. Thank you for being with us today and adding color to and uplifting our spirits in making the ceremony so meaningful. We thank all the chairpersons and judges of the symposia for the fullest support they extend in making this endeavor a success, and we thank all presenters who will be and have showcased their authentic work in this scholastic platform and contributing in sharing high quality evidence-based information. We wish to thank our main partners, WHO, World Bank, HNB Assurance for patronizing the 26th annual academic sessions of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. The College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka has been gifted with an excellent pool of members who are well geared, motivated and dedicated to work as a team to achieve an impossible goal. This event would never see the light of the day if it's not for you. Well done, the organizing team. Thank you. I sincerely thank all our postgraduate trainees of community medicine who assisted us in organizing the event and attending to each aspect of the sessions. compiling the program and the abstract book, web development, and IT support. We are proud of your capabilities. Thank you. The future is in good hands. I must also thank our secretarial assistant, Mr. Angelo Ravindran, for his support he extends in all the work in CCPSL and bearing with all of us through the years. It is with sincere gratitude we appreciate the support extended by our AV team, led by Mr. Sujiva Perez, and the Sarvodaya printers. Thank you for a job well done. We can't forget the SLMA for providing us the venue to host these virtual annual academic sessions of the CCPSL. Thank you, SLMA membership. I must say that this is the first virtual academic sessions of the CCPSL. As you all know, the organizing a ceremony of this nature amidst the pandemic has been challenging, and it generally the results of close cooperation among several institutions and individuals. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zones. There are too many of you to name individually. I realize that I might have missed a few institutions and individuals who have been supporting us. I wish to be forgiven for not specifically expressing our gratitude. Again, thanks to all those who worked tirelessly to make this event a success and helped us to create a day to remember. We look forward to your support and continuing relations in the years to come. Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much, Madam. This marks the conclusion of the inauguration ceremony of the 26th Annual Academic Session of the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka. I hope you join us for our academic sessions that will be held tomorrow, the 16th and the 17th of July 2021. Thank you for your participation and have a pleasant evening.